Doing like that? Why did you doing like that? Taking to school like that? Yo, we making moves like that. Yo, doing like that? Why did you do it like that? Let me move like that. But with a fool like that.
Hey y'all, it's Brooklyn and I'm back once again with another YouTube video. So as you guys can tell from the title, I'm going to be giving you guys a bit of some insight of what I've learned while reading the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. A while back, my friend slash big sister Zamir, she recommended that I read the book of Ecclesiastes because I was kind of in a place where I didn't really know what to study in my Bible. And to be honest, it's like after you finish a series of your favorite show, it's kind of like, what do I do now? She was like, you should read Ecclesiastes, it was really good. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. So y'all, I read Ecclesiastes and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It definitely made me sit and think about life and live life to our fullest potential and keep God in the center. That's kind of live life on purpose. If you guys have not seen this face before, hi, my name is Brooklyn. I post content that talks about faith, school related videos, vlogs, those that just give you guys a glimpse of my life. If you guys have not already, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Also, do not forget to like, comment, and also turn on those post notifications so that way you guys will not miss out on any uploads. Also, do not forget to follow me on my socials, which are up here and down below as usual. So without further ado, let's get on started. Get on started. Like I've already said before, the Bible that I usually study with is the Life Application Bible by Tyndale. Bible is literally amazing. I highly suggest getting a study Bible because it really breaks the verses down that you read and it helps you to get better insight. Because I ran out of notebook space in my first notebook, I have this one and then I have just this one, which I have been using after this one got used up. I'm gonna just start with the first chapter. The title of the passage for chapter 1 was called, and I quote, "Everything is meaningless." I know what you're thinking. You're probably like, why did he start so negative? Solomon was the author of Ecclesiastes. He referred to himself as the teacher or the leader of assembly. So basically when people gathered together, it would go to him to hear his wisdom and his advice that he had for them. He assembled the people to hear messages and wise sayings. And mind you, Solomon, he pretty much had everything. He was rich beyond compare. He had everything you could ever think of. But yet he always emphasized that life is meaningless. He just kept saying life is meaningless, this is meaningless, that is meaningless. One thing I wrote down was Solomon had everything, yet often spoke about the emptiness that the world offered. And y'all, when I read this, I thought that was so applicable to today's culture because, like, okay, you know how you hear people saying, you know, money is everything or money buys happiness, but in my opinion, it's like money really isn't everything. And I know that's so against the culture, but it really is true if you really think about it, because if money was really everything, you would be content, and people are never satisfied. No matter how much you get, it's like you stay hungry for more, you stay trying to get more. Even though money is necessary for survival, you can't idolize money because money is fleeting, it's temporary. So many of us make idols out of having money and, you know, grinding and hustling and this, that, and the third, but it's like money doesn't go to the grave with you. Sorry, not sorry. Solomon also wanted people to see that our commitment to God is the only reason to live. That's another thing that he highly emphasized throughout the book, is that we must keep God first and we must seek him and get our contentment and validation from him. And I found that to be true, and I'm still learning this today. Like God is the foundation for everything, because I feel like once we put God first and once we seek him, it changes our perspective on everything else. And so now we know what is of God and what isn't of God. Even with, you know, relationships, not just romantically, but within our friendships, within our family, our familial relationships, because we've experienced God's love, now we know what real love looks like. Now we know what love doesn't look like. Because we've seen kindness from God, now we know what a real heart of kindness looks like, and now we see what a heart of unkindness looks like. Solomon wanted people to know that prosperity and success does not last long. And I want to also highly emphasize that Solomon is not negating or degrading any of these things. And he even said that later on. He's like, he advises us to, you know, live life. And I think that what we fail to realize is that prosperity is not everything. Success is temporary, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, do any of these things go to the grave with you? no, it's just you. This book really taught me to live on purpose. I think that's the main message I kept getting, is just to live on purpose. Earthly possessions and accomplishments will fade one day. Only the pursuit of God brings real satisfaction. When you accomplish something, it's like you feel that satisfaction for maybe a good 2 or 3 days, and then afterwards all of that excitement is gone, and then you're trying to look for the next thing to accomplish. With God, it's like you find yourself being satisfied every single time. That is something that I can definitely attest to. Okay, for example, I be studying my Bible, right? And I always ask God before I read my Bible to help me to learn something, help me to see something in your word that stands out to me, that I can share it with somebody else. And when I tell you, God comes through every single time. I never fail to not learn something while I'm studying the Bible. And so it's just like, wow, God, like you always come through for me when I ask. And so I thank you for that. That kind of goes to show you that when we continue to pursue God, we're never left feeling empty or feeling like there's something more. And like I was saying before with not being content, there was actually a verse in the first chapter of Ecclesiastes. It was verse 8, and it said, no matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. And like I said before, it's like we always look for the next thing to tackle. Solomon, as he looked back over his life, he realized that most of it seemed meaningless and that nothing apart from God made him happy. When you try to do things without God, it's like you still feel that emptiness. It's like you know that you should be doing this life with God, but you stay trying to do it on your own. God always shows us that without me, you can literally do nothing. God always reminds us that when we have those moments where we still feel empty, Jesus is standing there probably like, because you didn't even ask me for help. The last note that I want to read from chapter 1 is, Solomon challenged us to find true and lasting meaning in God alone. And y'all, to be honest, I really had to sit there. It was kind of like a Selah moment for me. There are times where it's like, as much as I try to get closer to God, and even though I have been pursuing my relationship with God for 4 years now, there's moments where I feel like I'm not as grounded in Christ as I should be. In the meantime, you know, God is preparing me and finding contentment and peace in just having God. And I feel like that is a reoccurring lesson that I'm learning. And so I hope that that blesses somebody else out there, because it has definitely blessed me. Yeah, so that was it for chapter 1. And I remember the other chapter that I wanted to read my notes from was chapter 5, because the way that chapter 5 blessed me. In this chapter, the passage was called Approaching God with Care. The first verse says, when entering God's house, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. And then underneath I wrote, we should have an attitude of being open and ready to listen to God, not to dictate to him what we think he should do. And y'all, that kind of slapped me in the face for a second. Sometimes, you know, we come to God and it's like, ugh, like, God, why can't you just do this? Or like, God, why can't you just do that? It's like we kind of come to him already complaining and trying to tell him what he should do, when in reality, there's times where we just have to come to him and just try to meditate on him. The first thing that I like to do when I pray is try to thank him. I feel like when you thank him first, sets the atmosphere and it sets the tone for your time with God, because, you know, God appreciates your honesty. Like, he wants you to go to him when you're feeling not the best and all of that. So I'm not saying don't come to God, but I am saying still, you know, thank God that you have a voice, that you have the activity in your limbs, because I think once you count your blessings, it can also change your perspective, kind of alleviate the pain that you might be feeling in that moment. This is the part that I also wanted to talk about. Like, this is the biggest part. In verse 2, Solomon was talking about how we shouldn't make rash promises to God. And underneath I wrote, God suggests for us to not make vows or promises to him. We're human and we're bound to break promises. And that literally like blew my mind, because as children of God, we are also human. And so there's times where it's like, you know, God, if we say, God, if you get me through this, I promise I won't do it again. Promise you, I promise, I promise. And it's like, you sure about that? We're bound to break promises. That's why Solomon said we shouldn't make rash promises to God. And if we are going to make promises to him, we better hold ourselves to that promise. Or I even wrote a note, it said, when you make a promise to God, don't delay in following through. God takes promises very seriously. I even began to equate promises to prophecy, where it's like, even though prophecy is God giving someone else a word, and it's like God is speaking through them to somebody else. Not only does he take promises seriously, but he takes prophecy seriously. You have people who make false promises to God and to other people. You shouldn't make false prophecies either, because you don't want to make rash promises, and you most definitely do not want to give somebody a false prophecy and claim that God is telling you something, and God did not even tell you that. That's why you gotta make sure that you're being careful of who is laying hands on you, who is prophesying over you, because stories, plenty of moments where people have been falsely prophesied over, and it's like, you do not have to receive that. A prophecy, when it comes from God, it's bound to come to pass. And just like when God makes promises to us, it's bound to come to pass. And so I kind of equated the two in my head, and I was just like, huh, that's actually really cool. I think I even posted it on my Instagram when I was studying it. This was kind of a fun fact, but it was talking about how in Israelite culture, making a vow was a very serious matter. And so again, that just goes to show you how heavy making vows and promises are. Okay, so this next part was called the futility of wealth. And in verse 8, it was talking about how poor people were being oppressed by the powerful and justice was being miscarried. And boy, have we seen that in the span of 2 or 3 years. Like I was saying before, so you see how it's all tying together? Just like in chapter 1, verse 10 in chapter 5 says, those who love money will never have enough. Below it, I wrote, we always want more than we have. It's like the next part I wrote was, money in itself is not wrong, but loving money leads to all sorts of sin. People love to take, 1 Timothy 4, love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. That verse is often taken out of context. If you mention money in a song, people think, oh, love of money is the root of all evil. Loving it is a totally different action, and there are a lot of people who love money, and that's not what God wants for us. And like I said, even though money is necessary for survival, it's not something that we should be putting on a pedestal. It's not something that we should be idolizing. This verse was definitely reiterating that. Another note that I wrote down is, you're born with nothing and you die with nothing. Your houses, your cars, literally, your money is not gonna go to the grave with you. That's why it's cool to have those things, but don't be idolizing it. There's so much more to life. Those were the 2 main chapters that I wanted to talk about. I hope that they really blessed you, and I hope that these notes that I took really inspired you and blessed you in some way. I highly encourage you to read Ecclesiastes because it is definitely an eye-opening book. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. I will be giving you guys more content soon, so please stay tuned. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers, and thank you guys so much for the continual love and support. Make sure y'all follow me on my socials, which are up here and down below as usual. God bless you guys. I love y'all so much, and I will see you next time. Mwah! Bye!